Hey guys, I'm Katie Roome from Periapsis Press, and today I'm here with Jonathan Shuerger to interview him to talk about his recent release. Or no, not recent, upcoming. End of this month, right?
It's felt like it.
So you are, just to let everybody know, you are going on very, very little sleep from a hotel room tonight.
This this is correct. I'm dying here. I'm sorry, my Discord was apparently open and it had everything going on a delay.
Oh no.
So I'm trying to decide which questions to answer. But I think I fixed it. I got it fixed. So yes, I am running on very little sleep. I've been traveling all day, going to LibertyCon, and my body decided you're just not going to sleep last night. I can't sleep on
Ah.
planes. So, but this is the best time to be creative when the angels are speaking to me, and that's when the writing is good.
How's the con been?
It hasn't really started yet. It was basically just a meet and greet today.
Okay.
So went around and talked to people and listened to their books. Um, I wanted to hear their pitch. I'm a marketing guy, so I wanted to hear their pitches and hear their stories and what they were doing and what they're not doing. Um, so all that stuff is very interesting to me.
Well, fun. So tonight we're just gonna talk a little bit about Afterlight, which is the sequel to In Darkness Cast. And at any point, if I say the wrong thing, correct me because I wrote up and like scheduled 2 author interviews for the website today. So just be like, wait, no, wrong author.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. If I'll do. Like, I know you're in Wisconsin, so I'll do the Midwestern. Oh, you know,
Oh,
so, hey
that'll
now.
be a real quick. I have screwed up royally.
I won't throw a hey now on you. I know that's like we're about to pull guns. Whoa, buddy.
So, do you want to just start by talking a little bit about In Darkness Cast and then Afterlight and just sort of where we're coming from in the series and where we're going?
Yeah, sure. So In Darkness Cast came out in about 2020. That's when I released it. I ran a Kickstarter for it, funded some fantastic cover art. And the story is basically an aspiring hero prays for a mentor to teach him how to be a hero, and God gives him the last lord of the everlasting dark. Now the hero has to try to survive the training of a man who's killed thousands of heroes and has to adhere to the fairly high expectations darkness has of light. And so I in my head, I just call it Gideon's really bad day over and over again. He just has bad days.
How did you start writing this?
Oh, so when I was a young warthog, I went to college for writing, and I kind of had this idea then. It wasn't super fleshed out. It wasn't. I didn't have a whole lot of meat on it plot wise, but I knew what I wanted character wise. But I didn't know why I wanted it. Then after college, I studied for my black belt in Florida. Joined the Marine Corps, and it was when I was in the Marine Corps that it really came into focus what I was supposed to be writing for. Uh, a few things you should know about the Marine Corps: we're all cultists. We are fairly devoted to our corps. We all sound exactly the same. We all have the exact same reactions. It's kind of scary sometimes, because we're all going to react the same way. But every Marine who joins the Marine Corps is an idealist. No one's joining the Marine Corps for healthcare or for free college. That's the wrong branch. You done messed up. Everybody joins the Marine Corps because they believe in it, or they believe in something. They want to challenge themselves. They want to make themselves better. They want to push themselves or become something better. And then, because you're part of an American government institution at that point, you get that idealism beat out of you fairly quickly. Now, love Marines, but the Corps itself is a bureaucracy, and that will thrash you fairly quickly. So what happens when you have idealists who get broken is you get a cynical nihilist. You get somebody who doesn't believe in any good. And anytime you talk about good, they're going to come after you. Now, I'm one of the bad Christians. I'm an independent Baptist, so I'm a hater. Like, you all wrong. Even other independent Baptists, you're all wrong. And so I'm in the watch floor with a bunch of Marines, and I don't swear, I don't drink, I don't sleep around, I don't do any of the coping mechanisms they need to get through the week. So they start asking me questions, and we start having discussions on how the universe is supposed to run. So I can preach at them and I can throw Bible verses at them all day long, but they don't really care. However, it is my belief that God has laid the truth of the universe within the universe itself. When the universe functions correctly, this is the truth. So I know a lot of these arguments I'd be having with them, I would go through the truths of the universe and common sense and logic and all this kinds of stuff, and then slap them with a Bible verse at the end and be like, hey, stupid, this has been out for 2,000 years. Shades of Black coalesced plot-wise when I realized that I needed to write for these guys because they're being lost in the darkness. My job was, I was an Arabic cryptologic linguist. It was my job to listen to bad guys, and with a B- level of accuracy, tell people where they were. The problem is you're listening to bad guys talk. So we listen to ISIS. And when you listen to evil day in and day out, and they talk about torturing, or they laugh about killing, or they laugh about the Shias they're killing, or they laugh about rape, or you get to listen to rape, or whatever it is, that really puts a darkness on you. And so my guys are battling this darkness that they have no way to process, because all they understand or all they know to do is the noise at the end of the week. Go out drinking, have a good time with friends, but the darkness they go in through the week is way more than that. It's staggering. And that's where Ashkelon was born. I wanted to take the anger of my Marines at the failure of good to be good enough. I wanted to take all that bitterness and all that hatred that was birthed from that worldview, and I wanted to coalesce it into one character, and I wanted that character to win. Okay, guys, this is what you think. This is what you believe. This is what it looks like when you win. And so I'm not spoiling anything. The book's been out for 4 years, people. If you haven't read it yet. Ashkelon destroys his homeworld. He destroys his race. Kills them all. Looking for a hero who can judge him. Looking for a hero who can give him the answers that he's looking for, or at least give him the idea that justice exists in the universe. And when he doesn't find anything, and he's killed everything, and it's just him left, that is when he says, I can't be all that there is. I cannot be the pinnacle. And so he starts to search for a hero or an avatar of light or God or something that can match him, that can defeat him, that can take him out without him, helping it. And when he can't find anyone, he decides to train his own. And that's where poor Gideon gets his prayer request answered. And Ashkelon has a new student, and Gideon has a new master. And then Ashkelon starts throwing him into the conflicts of this world, Sinai, against the demons of hell. But throughout it, Gideon and Ashkelon are having these conversations of light and darkness and truth and deception and who's being lied to. What are the answers? Who's lying to themselves? So it takes me years to write these things because, I have to wrestle through all the stuff they have to wrestle with. I have to remember what my guys are wrestling with, and not just like what I call local political issues. I don't give a crap about who you vote for. I want to know why you're in pain. What's causing you to react the way that you do? Are you searching for a sensual morality that'll make you feel like you're doing the right thing so that you can live with yourself? And you just feel more and more hollowed out the more you go. So you have to go more and more radical and angry to feel like you're actually doing something to make the noise, to drown out the emptiness. There's a lot of pain that you got to swim through to tackle something like this. So really, that's where I came from to write Shades of Black.
It's a very big, heavy idea taken like that. But the story itself has a lot of fun. And
Yes.
the relationship between Gideon
I
and
like to
Ash.
have fun. Sure, I'll go out and and I'll kill whoever I have to kill. It's my job. I'm a Marine or whatever. But you got to have a way to alleviate it. Dark humor is just making light in the dark. It's there's studies have been done. It's a resiliency mechanism. Soldiers, Marines who allow and permit dark humor in their work environments, they go way better. They're just having a way better time. So there's a balance that has to be struck when you're dealing with these super heavy elements. You have to bring in something to alleviate, and that's where you get your side characters. You got Skald, old Russian cantankerous Viking grandpa, who just has a real wry sense of humor and makes fun of everybody being too serious. One, I think, fairly ingenious addition, and I don't take credit for it. I'm sure my wife told me to do it. Was the little girl Sima, because she is the perfect foil to Ashkelon's darkness because it doesn't touch her, and he doesn't want it to touch her. So she confuses him, and as a result, he loses his focus, and everything's not so heavy anymore until she gets threatened, and then it gets really, 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 really heavy.
But when it does, there's definitely an element of like Schadenfreude. Like you shouldn't have done that, right? Like
You did this.
you kind of deserve to be thrown into the void.
You should have known. I'm just saying.
um Can you I think you talked very briefly about the fighting demons. Could you talk a little bit more about the mythos for your world?
Oh yeah, sure. So I am a thief. I don't do a whole lot originally. Um, and I needed like bad guys. And so I'm like, this is probably 10 years ago that I decided to pick these guys. Um, I decided to base my three demon lords off of just the names for hell in Hebrew and Greek. So Sheol, Gehenna, and Mammon. It's not even a name for hell. Um, and I decided to treat them as aspects, the way Diablo does. So in Diablo, Diablo is the lord of terror. Mephisto is the lord of hatred. Baal is the lord of destruction. Um, Obviously, I didn't want to do those exactly because that's plagiarism and that's a no-no. Um, but I kind of did the same thing. Sheol is the lord of death, or he believes he is the lord of death. He claims and preaches that he is the lord of death. He's much more magically focused. He doesn't focus so much on physical kinetic conflict as he does proxies. So under Sheol is the magic of necromancy. He has necromancers under him that will raise the corpses of the dead and send them into conflict. Now, I don't have it operating to where the dead actually come back. It's not a person in there. Basically, if you read the Raising of Urmok Grey, I kind of break it down to where it's a blood disease that attaches itself to the now defunct nervous system. And they use spellcraft to actually activate the nervous system and puppet the corpse, which is why they can only do very basic commands, such as all of you rush in this direction. Which is juxtaposed against the Bone Scribe, which is the main villain of Afterlight, because he has a much more fine-tuned level of control over the bodies that he raises, to the point where he can raise the bones, because his magic, his doctrine focuses on the bones themselves. So that's Sheol. And of course, I broke it down even further because I think zombies are super boring. I mean, playing video games, I love shooting zombies. I'm a Nazi zombies guy. If I just want to relax, I'll throw on Call of Duty Cold War, go into one of them big maps and just run around shooting zombies for a while. Helps me think. They are the absolute worst adversaries to write. They are so boring. They're just squishy and gross. There's no hatred, there's no emotion, there's no nothing that they bring to a conflict. And it's really difficult to keep emotional energy going when there's no emotional energy.
Yeah, they're really more of a
uh,
movies and film type thing where you have
yeah,
that.
and they haven't even really been done well then, other than World War Z.
Sure.
World War Z did a fantastic job of treating them more like a swarm than as, I don't know, there's a bunch of walking cannibals out there. But man, they're so boring. So I'm like searching for ways to make these things interesting. So I developed several schools of necromancy. You have your Belfarok necromancers. These guys, quantity over quality. It's about raising as many bodies as you can and just overwhelming formations with them. I developed some hemomancy, so blood magic, carnomancy, flesh magic, making stronger zombies that are able to pull down fortifications or break through gates and stuff like that. And then I had a lot of fun with the murder priests, who raise a fresh kill, and can puppet it so well that it looks alive. And they use those to assassinate officers or politicians or whatever. So that was fun to develop. I actually had like a little feedback group when I was doing Gasp, because I wanted to make him as creepy as possible. Um, so that's Sheol. He's Lord of Death. He comes in a lot more in the third book in Nightfall. We'll see a lot more of him. Then we have Gehenna. Gehenna is the master of suffering. It is his goal to make humanity suffer as much as possible because he believes that is the way you cause distress or hurt to the Almighty. Is to not just cause suffering to humanity, but to cause humanity to cause suffering to humanity. And to teach humanity to hurt itself. And Gehenna, I mean, of course, in the beginning of In Darkness Cast, you had Aganin, the Jehanan Inquisitor. You had Abram, his little flunky / apprentice. And they're slavers. They actually control the slavery trade in Samothrace behind the scenes. Again, just to enhance suffering. So I haven't done deep dive into Gehenna yet, but we're getting there. I think that's book 4. I think so. Whenever I get there, that's when I'm diving into the slave trade and really Gehenna's philosophy of attacking humankind. And then the last one is Mammon, and I've done a lot of diving into Mammon. Mammon is the Lord of Hunger. He preaches the virtues of both feasting and famine to the false righteousness of way too much abstinence. Like that's what confers the righteousness. Or there's excess. You know, you have power, you have resources, and so you just consume everything you can. And from there we get Ja, the Spider Queen, or whatever it was I called her, in the first book. Ursus and his tribe were scions of Mammon, but very reluctantly. There was very loose authority there. And I have tons of other characters that are falling under Mammon's umbrella. If you read Blood of Anak, if you read Son of Anak, basically the Ursus storylines and the novellas, you get a much better world-building view of Mammon and how he operates things.
And there,
so
I
those
think
are the bad guys.
The antagonists in the Christmas story you wrote for us were minions.
I can't remember what the Hellswarm. They're the lobsters in my head.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking
I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yes, so they were basically like locusts. That's what I called them, locusts. Just a pack of locusts that Mammon releases in Samothrace to just consume, like a swarm of locusts would. And it's in keeping with his philosophy to have disposable demon swarms like that. So, yeah, the Mammon's real easy to write for because a lot of humanity really operates off of its hungers. You know, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get food. I'm hungry, I'm going to beat that guy up and take his wallet. I want power. I want sex. There's a lot of impulses, really, that man needs to learn to control and discipline. And Mammon is my method of addressing those issues.
Nice. I remember when I read In Darkness Cast, it struck me as the 3 main demon lords struck me as being kind of a new take with a familiar pattern because they weren't like just 7 deadly sins type like
which was a consideration.
And I particularly liked the 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 minions under Mammon,
Mhm.
and that really made the world feel interesting and rich to me, at the time, and I enjoyed the expansion of the mythos in Afterlight. Uh,
The
so
goal was to create antagonists or adversaries that people knew that they had run into, because we all know people who struggle with their hungers, drug addicts or um, corrupt cops, or we're talking from every angle, politicians on both sides, uh, freaking middle managers. Yeah, like I wanted to write people that I wanted to write people so that anyone reading the book would be like, yeah, that's a bad guy. I know that bad guy. I worked for that bad guy. That bad guy denied my leave or something. Which probably the worst bad guy, the one I've gotten the most feedback on, and I think it's because it specifically targeted females, is Inikentia.
Mm.
If you read the novella Desolate, she is the adversary, but she's a commanding officer. And my artist has been like bugging me. He's like, when are we killing Inikentia? When are we killing Inikentia? And I'm like, who's we?
You
I'll get
know,
there. Back off.
us.
Let's ease up.
You and us
Let's start.
vicariously through you.
Yes. So I've been like dwelling on this for a year since Desolate came out. I'm like, okay, how's Inikentia die? Because apparently she has to die, or otherwise, this story isn't done. Yeah, I hear you, Chris. Uh, yeah, specifically Inikentia, she is power driven. And a lot of it is justified by I'm the best person for the job. Humanity is about to be torn apart, and it takes someone as cruel and unfeeling as I am to save humanity.
Hmm.
I really want to address like the Machiavellian or the Cardinal Richelieu doctrines of, because it's best for France, it's the right thing to do. And I'll be diving into that a lot more in book 4.
Yeah, Kristen agrees.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone hates Inikentia. This is no one's okay with her.
Uh, let's see. Looking over my questions.
Just why?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the the type of heroism that you are trying to promote in the series? Because I
Hmm.
feel, well, especially in Darkness Cast, uh, there was a kind of push and pull between Ashkelon and Gideon about
Yeah,
what a hero was, with
right.
each of them having a slightly different ideal. And
Right.
as the series continues, obviously, and they grow as characters, their viewpoints may change. You want to talk just a little bit about what you're going for?
I don't know. People think I'm in charge. um, so I think I cheat. I think I am convinced that the Lord gives me the story, and I just sit down and type. So I don't know what he's doing. And in Darkness Cast, a complaint I got from several people is that Gideon is a flat character. because he doesn't change.
Okay.
And
Wasn't that my
I was like,
interpretation
I,
at
I kind
all?
of leaned back and I'm like, sure, but that's kind of the point, you know? Gideon starts out a believer, and I don't mean in the sense of like he's religious. I mean he's an idealist. He believes and he wants to believe. And in the first chapter, after that tragic event that occurs and hopelessness and despair strike him, he still chooses to believe. And then that is when he gets his prayer request. But even when Ashkelon is brutalizing him and just killing him over and over and over and over and over again, he still chooses to believe. He does not change. He snaps, but he does not change. When he's thrown into the conflict with the Venans and the wolves, he doesn't change. When the conflict itself changes and the army's been shattered outside of Hammerfall and it's time to go to the World Eater, he doesn't change. And even at the very end, where Ashkelon is vulnerable, Gideon doesn't change. And I was going for a Captain America kind of thing there. He doesn't change. And that's important to Ashkelon.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ashkelon's major contention with good or light is that it fails. It's weak. Which is why the series is called Shades of Black. Because too often heroes claim shades of gray. Oh, there's shades of gray here. It's not everything's black and white. But when you come from the viewpoint of darkness, if you see any black at all, it's all just a shade of black, unless it's pure white,
Mm-hmm.
because darkness recognizes its own. And so Ashkelon is testing and purging Gideon, sometimes to see if he'll break, but sometimes just to see him go. Because he's seeing something that he's wanted to believe in, but he's never seen in action.
Well, I think that's part of the appeal of a Paragon character is we're not looking, we're not watching, waiting for them to fall apart. We're really hoping that they continue, right?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
that's that that hope and in the ideal that someone could do it and keep
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Uh, you know, just keep getting up, keep
Exactly.
uh
Which is what I was going for in Ember Knight. Gideon keeps
he
getting up.
does. Poor kid.
Another really bad day for Gideon. I'm
I
sorry
love
your
that
life sucks
story.
with me, man. But that leads us into Afterlight. And there's kind of some foreshadowing in the title itself. Because what do you do after you win, but you didn't win? And it doesn't feel like winning. At the end of In Darkness cast, Gideon is exiled. He loses the girl. You're not supposed to lose the girl. That's not how stories go. And he just feels like he's lost everything, even though he gave everything. And he has to go start again. And so he's kind of carrying this despair with him, and that's really what Gaff preys on. And this is something I've seen a lot with Christians, is we want to win. There's a personality type that needs to win. I need to see that what I'm doing and all the sacrifices I'm making, that matters. That all this faith that I'm showing, or all this effort I'm putting in, or all this loss that I'm taking, or all the crap I'm taking just for taking a stand, that there's an effect. And it's hard to see that in today's world, because you try to stand up at all, it's now like socially okay to scream at you and cancel you and dox you and whatever. I want to start showing that through Gideon. So Gideon is not quite as much of a paragon in Afterlight, though he's still trying. Gideon himself hasn't changed as much as he is being influenced. And of course, book 3 is called Nightfall, and we're really going into what happens when, because it's like results oriented faith, which doesn't work for anything, because something can be the right thing to do and you still don't win. He's not getting the results he wants, so he's willing to take power from somewhere that he shouldn't. And so that's what we're going into in Nightfall, which I'm not going to spoil at all here. But the arc for Gideon, for this hero, is to remember and hold to the basics, the fundamentals, your first love. You know, can it be beaten out of you? Because there are some people who are serving in the church that honestly shouldn't be anymore. They're kind of done. Psychologically, they broke a while ago, and they're going through the motions, and maybe it's because they think they care on a shallow level, but they have no relationship with the Lord. They have no power anymore. They're just I talk about this in Afterlight when Ashkelon is looking at the undead. You're staggering around looking for another mouthful to try to remember what it was like to be alive. And the point of Gideon is to show that it doesn't have to be that way. That even if you fail, you can still do good work. So that's kind of where I'm going with the hero arc.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little bit, I like Paragon Gideon, so I was a little bit like, bummer.
Yeah.
But I think as Ashkelon is going on a almost like the opposite journey from Gideon, they're still very much foils for each other, and serving as.
It's funny because they're like working with each other, but they're not talking to each other. They're really just men, you know. It's like I was hanging out. I had to go to a homeschool event yesterday with my wife and my kids, and I sat there and talked to a guy for like an hour and a half. And I got in the car with my wife, and I'm like, "What's his name?" It never came up. I got other things to do. Ashkelon and Gideon are so wrapped up in their internal conflicts, they don't notice the conflict going on in the other one. And they kind of talk about them sometimes, but they're not noticing them because they're so embroiled in their own stuff. Which becomes a plot device in book 3. It's neat because in Afterlight, Ashkelon can see the effects of Gideon's decline, and it frustrates him. The frick is wrong with you? Get back. You know, what are you doing? What happened to you? You know, why is your sword cold? He can see the effects, but he is himself damaged and broken, so he doesn't have the solution. It's like, go do hero stuff the way heroes are supposed to do it, and it will fix you. I don't know what it is. I'm not a hero. Do I look like a good guy to you? Uh, so his confusion is also reflected back onto himself, where he's like, am I damaging him with my teaching?
Mm.
Is Gideon learning the wrong way? Which causes Ashkelon to question everything, and it keeps Ashkelon in a teachable state, because he can see his student is not doing the things that he was doing, and he can't figure out why. Is this really a girl problem? That was one of my favorite lines to write. I don't know what the problem is, but fix it.
Gideon's a simple person with simple problems. They're just
yeah. Gideon or Ashkelon is just like, be the glowing paragon of light and shut up. Quit your whining. I've got real problems. Like, this little girl wants to call me dad.
That was a fun arc. I thought with Gideon's arc, I was frustrated several times. But with Ashkelon's, it was like, you are getting what you deserve in the best way possible.
Yeah. So actually, in the first book, I have no idea where Simon came from. Oh no, I do. Is music. How to Train Your Dragon.
Good music.
The track called Forbidden Friendship. Because Ashkelon has no idea what's going on with this kid. What is in your head? You've seen me kill and destroy, but you have no fear of me. And he's trying to understand why. Why do you love me? Because it's meritless. And Ashkelon only lives in a world of merit. And to have something unconditionally given confuses him to the point that sometimes he has to run. The man has killed millions. And in Afterlight, he has to run. He has to get away to think. And of course, he has the conversations with Anya that night, trying to figure out, what do I do with this? What's the right answer? If I'm responsible for her now, what is the best world for her to live in, and how do you make that happen? So he's asking parenting questions, but he's asking them on a much deeper level than the rest of us ask. I'm thinking, when do I sleep? And Ashkelon is asking, how do I change the world so that what does the world need to look like? I know how to change the world, but what does the world need to look like?
There has to be a world.
The place she needs to be. Yes, there has to be a world first. But that's also a new question for him, because when the world was unacceptable before, he destroyed it. And so it's harder to build a world or change an existing world into what it needs to be. And so he's learning that aspect of parenting, which is all related to the master question of love, which again is not something he's ever experienced. I gave my artist a snapshot of what's coming, and he hates me. He's like, no.
Well, there was some pretty ominous foreshadowing at the end of Afterlight.
Yeah.
So
that came from nowhere. I had no idea I was going to write that. I was like, what's the worst possible thing? Ooh. So I was like, yeah, if I was this angry, there would be nothing off limits.
Yeah, it will be interesting for all of us, I'm sure. Um
Book 4 is going to get stuff thrown at me. Like, I think I'll actually have mobs show up at my house. My wife keeps asking me, why don't you write anything happy? Uh, like,
In Darkness
I'll
Cast
just
was
walk.
happy.
I'll just walk out of my office and I'll be like, I'm sad now. And she's like, stop writing that then. But I went through a whole thing of writing Desolate and Raising of Erma Gray, and then Afterlight, which Afterlight was agonizing. And wrestling with these kinds of pain that result in these thought systems. How do people process decision making in the wake of trauma? And it's getting worse. I mean, it's not getting better. I mean, we're still only almost halfway through the series. It's supposed to be a 5-book series, which, let me just say, okay, this was supposed to be 1 book. Okay, I started writing in Darkness Cast, and it wasn't in Darkness Cast. It was just called Shades of Black. It was the perfect title, and I was happy with it. And then I got 100,000 words in and realized, oh, this is not 1 book. This is a trilogy. Okay, cool. So I finished in Darkness Cast. That's about 129,000 words. Put it out there for the world to see. Started working on Death Scream. Book 2 was called Death Scream, and that's the Kickstarter that I developed. Got cover art and everything made. Okay? I got 90,000 words into Death Scream and realized I had just finished Act 1. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. No!
Not again.
It took me 6 months to break book 2 into 2, 3, and 4. Because now I had to, in my first act, I had to have a climax at the end of the book. That
We
was
gotta
an
have
actual
that.
climax and not an Act 1 climax. I had to, the arcs that are being done, like Gideon's decline, that was resolved in book 2. And now
Stretching.
that arc stretches. And I'm like, crap, I have to leave him at this point, but it has to be satisfying or nobody's going to read book 3. Nobody's going to keep going. Dad got it. Gath. She was resolved in book 2. And now she's like this just ghost. She's just clinging onto everything. I'm like, man, it's going to take me forever. So rebalancing the Act 1 of Death Scream and turning it into Afterlight, it took me about 8 months. Because I had to redo everyone's arcs, what they were learning, when they learned it. I mean, the Bone Scribe was always a thing, but Ashkelon's arc, what happens in Afterlight, was not in Death Scream. I had to completely build it from the ground up. And then the cannons. They weren't there in Death Scream.
just had to
Gasp
find something.
wasn't there in Death Scream. I literally had a draft written of Act 1, and I'm typing stuff into the middle of it. So I call it Frankensteining a draft. So when I look at this book, I'm like, this thing's ugly. I can see the sutures.
So
I was like, oh yeah, I remember where I dug up that arm.
So then how established is the rest of the series? Are you working
fairly
off
well now. So,
are you still working off outlines, or do you have significant portions written of the next couple books, or?
So actually, my outlining is very nebulous, because I write to music. Um, you are frozen. Okay, you're back.
You
Uh,
were frozen, so
oh, okay. Well, to me, it was you that are frozen. Uh, I write to music, so all of my emotional points, like I'm not an emotional person, but I can feel emotion and I can read it and analyze it from music. So what I do is I form playlists, and so the playlist for In Darkness Cast is like 40 hours long, and it's mostly movie soundtracks. Um, and so I'll listen to the music to get the feeling for what I want in a scene, what needs to happen here. What are the points of conflict? Sometimes I follow the music very closely. Sometimes I listen to several pieces of music and kind of gestalt something out of it. Um, I can always tell the pieces I've written without music. All my transition pieces, I hate them. If I'm getting somebody from one point to another, I know when I'm just filling in, with crap. Uh, so my outline is pieces of music. I need to get to this dramatic point. I need to get to this low point. I need to get to here. I need to foreshadow it, set it up, execute it in denouement. Or in my case, usually just go straight into the next, dramatic point. I've had complaints from some female readers that they can't breathe. Like there's no point to rest. I'm like, I didn't write it for you. Marines operate at this tempo. So what do you want me to say? The
I would say
so
the
the,
pace
out,
is
the
breakneck for sure, but
I thought
I
Silas slowed it down. Yeah, he's very much an I want to live kind of individual, and yeah.
I really liked him. When he first came when he first came in, I was like, "Oh, another viewpoint character." And then, like, as I kept reading
Mhm.
him, I was like, "This guy is an excellent addition." What was I whining about?
Well, so he's my Han Solo character in this book. So in Star Wars, everyone is super serious, and everyone is, the Force and destiny and let go of your feelings and stuff. And Han is like, just shoot it. He breaks the rhythm and keeps it enjoyable. Um, and then the conflict between him and Leia, again, the love interests aren't supposed to be quarreling. One of them's supposed to be fighting to get to the other one, and really the problem here is them. The Empire is just kind of external. So I wanted a Han Solo type character in the book to fight the book. I hate where I live. I don't like this place. Because if you don't do that and all the NPCs are just at the whims of the world that you've created, that's boring. I personally hate all the NPCs in the Diablo games. They're pointless. They just live in this really sad, cruddy world, and they're just at its whims, and they're just
Why are you
crying all the
there?
time. Yeah, like, shut up, do something. But Silas was fun because he's like, nope, I want to live.
I thought he was really interesting too. I have most of my review written for Afterlight, but I don't think I talked about him at all. I don't think I figured out how to talk about him in
Hmm.
this way. But like in Darkness Cast, we have this great conversation about what a hero is from Gideon and Ashkelon.
Hmm.
And then in Afterlight, enter Silas, who does not want to be a hero, who says repeatedly, I am not a hero, and then behaves like a hero.
I would like to leave. Can I go?
I like
uh,
how like the first few chapters with him, like you're still trying to figure out like, wait, did is he legitimately like a heroic person, or is he somehow like a heroic person who has some sort of imposter syndrome, or is he somehow like accidentally faked himself into this role? It takes you a
Yeah.
couple of like scenes before you're like, okay, okay, I think I
Yeah.
figured you out.
Yeah. He's like, look, I need to make the best decision possible to stay alive. But because I value staying alive, I also feel compassion for other people who I think also should stay alive and are stuck in the same situation that I am in. Like Colonel Mayhew was one of my favorite characters to write in the entire book, and he only like got one scene, which is so frustrating. But I couldn't put him in anywhere else and keep the flow of the book, so that was really sad. I patterned him after Colonel Hathi from the Jungle Book. He's just the big British elephant. Um, and just Silas's frustration at dealing with someone so incompetent that is going to get him killed. It was such a fun scene to write, but also having to like sew together the command environment. So all the soldiers in Tun are basically worthless because they're under the command of Mayhew, who prioritizes all the wrong things. And this happens in the military. If you have the wrong command philosophy in place, it reflects. Everybody gets less efficient, lazy, demoralized, all that kinds of stuff. And it's very much a garrison mentality. And it's just frustrating for someone like Silas, who wanted to go to the garrison so that he's not in Belfarak. He's like, I want to live the cush life until I'm done with this nonsense. And then he's stuck with a garrison mentality when it comes time for war, and he's frustrated by that.
Well, we'll get him killed.
Yeah, because he'll die. Like, if everyone would just be professional, we'd be fine.
I really enjoyed how you wove in the sort of modern army problems
Hmm.
into this uh fantasy world. I thought
Yeah,
that
I I hate Gondor. Okay, I get elves. I get it. Okay, they're not real. Okay,
What?
these dudes live for millennia. Okay, so I get elves. Okay, and the Rohirrim, I was on board with the Rohirrim. Bunch of horse knights. Totally on board with those guys. The soldiers of Gondor were the most pointless. Just show how bad the orcs are, the dragons are. I hate them because they're not real. They're there for effect. They
Sure.
could have been CGI.
No,
They
let's not give them permission to use more CGI than
yeah,
necessary.
right. But it's like they were empty suits of armor. They were there to scream when the Nazgul came by. It's like, Mary Jane in the first 3 Spider-Man movies. You're a pointless waste of space. And I hate the soldiers of Gondor in the Lord of the Rings movies because they have no presence. They're there to show how bad the bad guys are. They're there to show how bad the threat is. And I don't like that. I wanted soldiers who acted like soldiers. I wanted superstition. I wanted, I wanted kids who joined to make the world a better place and were like, holy crap, I've been taken advantage of. The recruiter lied to me, kind of thing. I want Silas, who was forced to join by his dad, to keep him out of trouble. I had so much fun writing the agent, Candace Morgan. I based her off of the captain from Treasure Planet because that's one of my favorite characters of all time. Love her. She's hysterical and fearless and totally in charge. There's no doubt that she's in charge. I loved giving her a past with Silas, where Silas is like, "No, you get me killed. What are you doing here? Like, I'm not listening to your crap. Why are you here?" Because I like breaking the fantasy feel. I think you can get too far gone into the Tolkien-esque world building where everything is noble bright. Or grim dark. Everything is just so grim dark nowadays. Real people aren't like this. Real people, you're gonna have my Marines. You have that guy who will figure out the solution to the problem, and it will be illegal. You just don't tell anybody. I saw a guy in 29 Palms took an Arizona iced tea can, built an antenna, and gave himself phone signal in the middle of the desert. Okay, and of course it's Marine Corps philosophy. We steal everything from the Army and the Air Force. We just go out and loot them. What are they going to do? Try to stop us? So that plays in later in like book 3 and 4. But I wanted these kinds of different cultures within the military. I wanted garrison culture. I wanted frontliner army culture. I wanted Marine Corps culture. I wanted I don't want to be here culture. And then you have the wolves. You have it juxtaposed with Skald, who is a demon hunter by trade and by like creed, and Anya, who is with him in it. And then that's juxtaposed against Gideon, who's just trying to keep everyone alive and kill the bad guys while also not dying with the bad guy he runs around with, who's worse than anyone. So being able to sew all these different cultures together was the challenge there.
I think you did very well. The heroes were never incorporated into what the army was doing in a like, okay, you stand here and you hold this shield here, that type of way.
Yes.
It was like,
yeah. Welcome to the military.
Right.
The ones doing stuff aren't doing what they're told. Yeah, there was a lot of my personal experience with the American military that came out in it. And I've heard from a lot of my guys, it's like, yep, this is what it was like. This is funny. In Desolate, I actually broke the most traumatic thing in the whole story by doing a duty report. So there is a format of report you have to write every day in the logbook when you're on duty. And that's like a standing watch. So the gate guard writes out his log entry, and he's totally unprofessional because he's about to be processed out in a couple of days. So you just really get the I'm so totally done with the Army vibe. And then there's a note appended to it by the bureau saying this private was posthumously demoted for unprofessionality in his report.
Because of course.
And all my Marine buddies were like, yep, that tracks.
So in Darkness Cast, we're very much in the Viking culture. In Afterlight, the army. Book 3, where are we going?
You're gonna be sad. It's very sad.
Okay, can't
It
just leave it there.
so this is the book where Gideon fails. And I had when Eliezer talks to Gideon, he's really trying to prepare him for what's going to happen. And Gideon has no idea how bad it can get. And I have plans. Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible, terrible person. Because it's going to get so dark. You know, you have Gath doing basically psychological warfare on Gideon to weaken him. And I can't say anymore because people haven't read Afterlight yet. And going into Gideon's background and getting him to reject what he is. And at the same time, dealing with Ashkelon, who, again, I can't say anything because no one's read Afterlight. He has a new problem. And so Chris and Kristen are in the chat there. I was screaming about it in our writers group because I'm like, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did this. I made book 3 so much harder to write because of what happens at the end of Afterlight. I'm like, what was I even thinking? What are you even doing? Why are you making it hard on yourself? What are you even doing? I'm tired just thinking about it. And then we had the continuation of Savara and the consequences she's enduring. Because now she's with Legion. And of course, Legion is on his own mission. I've written Legion to be very dismissive of humans because he's an angel. Even worse, he's a scavenger. And so he is cruel. What else can I say? My artist is excited. He can't wait to do this one. So we have a long travel segment coming.
Are we getting out of the aftermath of Ashkelon's?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. We are traveling. So we're going to do some pirate action. So we have some ship-to-ship combat. We're going to use the Marines a little bit more. I actually had to take stuff out of Afterlight because it messed up the climax too much to put them in there. So I had to save them for book 3. But some cool tactical stuff that I was doing. So they're going to be fighting shale and pirate vessels. And then there's an encounter on the road, which is meaningful to Ursus. I've actually had a couple people beta read that already, and they're like, this is awful. Ursus made me cry. And then we get to the City of Life, which, if you know anything about the way I write, it's not a happy place. There's no happiness. That's not the way any of this works. But we still have the lightness. You know, I like humor. I think it's the best way to lighten things. And people who get too serious, I can't wait for you guys to meet Doc. He is the corpsman who's attached to the Marines, but he's a mechanical being animated by magic. That's called a core. So he is a core man.
Nice.
And he's not permitted to harm human beings. He can only help them. So he's like this Baymax kind of guy. And he's just trying to heal people. But he can't save them. He can't get in the way. He can't fight because of his creator restrictions on it. Because his creator didn't want the army to create a bunch of weapons. He just wanted to create healers. And the Corps love the Marines because the Marines are much more prone to casualties. And so they're just kind of drawn to them. And so I have some fun dynamics with that character as he's trying to help the Marines. He's trying to help Gideon. The first time he scries Gideon to figure out what's wrong with him, he's like, "You need serious medical attention. You've died so many times. Your scar tissue is so it's a lot of fun to write that kind of character. I have fun with the love triangle between Anya, Ellen, and Gideon. That was one of my favorite chapter endings to write, is when she rode into town. And I quizzed my wife, "What's the best thing to say here? What would you say?" So he'll be dealing with consequences from that. And of course, there's aspects at the end of Afterlight that contribute to that whole scenario. You have Skald, of course, who's still dealing with his trauma. I'm almost done writing Einherjar, which is the novella of Skald's origin.
Nice.
It's his origin story. And I'm not going to let Chris read it because she nuked the last one that I wrote. So the reason it didn't get released with Afterlight is Chris found something that was fairly enormous in terms of plot implications, and it screwed up everything. So I basically have to rewrite the last 2/3 of the story. But I can't wait for you guys to read that one. That one gives you a lot of insight into who Skald is and why he's so hurt in Afterlight. Yeah, there's a lot. And of course, there's Eleazar. I love using Eleazar to just nuke anything the characters are doing. Gideon has no idea who he's talking to.
I feel like the end of Afterlight was just like a series of epilogues that were like, okay, and then this bad thing is happening.
They were.
And this bad thing
I
is
know.
happening, and this bad thing is happening. Look forward to book 3.
Can I combine these? I don't think I can. I was writing the epilogue and I'm like, no, this is just chapter whatever number it is, which is a bunch of epilogues, and then I got to write the epilogue. Yeah, no, I know. I wasn't happy about that, but I was stuck. Because, again, this was supposed to be one book.
I was fine with it. It was like I had not my happy ending, but, it ended and it was satisfactory. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, okay, don't worry. There's going to be a book 3 and there's going to be plenty that happens in it.
I've had people ask, so I've had several people who've only read In Darkness Cast so far. And they're like, where do you go after the World Eater? What do you even do? There's no way to scale it more. And I'm like, my poor, sweet summer child. Buckle up, son. They could get way worse. Uh, it's funny. I have almost no one talk about the World Eater to me. No one
Really?
brings it up. No one cares. Because as I intended, the World Eater is not the focal point. Even though it seems like it should be, it's not.
It's pretty big, but it's not even really a valid antagonist because, like, it doesn't I mean, it's a threat, right? Like,
Mhm.
but it doesn't,
It's yeah, it's like
per
more like a primal force slash
yes.
weapon that's like inevitable or unstoppable, but it only just serves as a punching bag to show you how angry Ashkelon really is. Like
Yeah,
you don't
its
really get a
main
sense of the scale.
its main purpose in the story is to up the ante. Otherwise it
Mhm,
doesn't function in any other narrative venue for
mhm.
the story. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
My purpose in using such a super monster like that was to put it out of reach of Gideon. No way Gideon's gonna be able to handle this. Um, but even when Ashkelon destroys it, he's not the good guy. And in the middle of it, he's confessing how lost he is. Because all this power means nothing. It doesn't matter. And I enjoy this aspect of Ashkelon's character to where he's kind of a Mary Sue, but you don't get that. There's probably nothing that can hurt him, but that's not the point. He's not a physical conflict character. He's on the same search for truth that all of us are. And he uses his power very selectively. And when he does, I'm just trying to achieve the rule of cool. Um, but the like the scene with the blooded. At no point was Ashkelon ever under threat, but it's not the point. I'm not trying to provide an antagonist to him
Right.
in a physical form. So just trying to keep all of this stuff balanced to where the reader can learn what it is they're supposed to learn. If you're reading it as a Christian, you've got Gideon and Skald and Anya and their conflicts that they're going to that you can relate to. If you're going into it as a cynical nihilist that I wrote it for, someone lost in darkness and violence and terrible coping mechanisms, you identify with Ashkelon. And that's my goal. I want you to agree with him and his questions. And I'm not trying to preach to these people. That's what the Bible's for. That's what preachers are for. But I am trying to crystallize the questions. Because a lot of times people just have a nebulous sense or a vague sense of what is wrong, but they don't know how to verbalize it.
Mhm.
So I just want their questions put out there as angrily as they want to put them, as bitterly as they want to see them done justice. They want their questions respected.
Mhm.
And we don't, as Christians, we don't do a great job of respecting questions like that. We find them offensive and threatening. But I wanted to respect where my guys are coming from. And so there are only two favorite characters in the books. Okay. All the good people love Skald. All the happy people love Skald. And all the angry people love Ashkelon. These are the only two characters anyone cares about.
I think I commented on this in my review of In Darkness Cast, and I certainly do in my review of Afterlight. how when Ashkelon is having a conversation with Gideon and then they talk about stuff like this where it's real life questions, right?
Hmm.
Um, it never feels like the nameless, faceless author behind the scenes is puppeting. Okay, and
Think
now
this.
they say this, and then the right answer is this, and then oh,
Exactly.
all of my
I
questions,
understand.
right? Like I just
Oh my
poof,
gosh.
all of the emotion that was behind my question is just magically resolved in peace, right? Like
Because that's how it happens in real life. I did this when I was at school. I went to a Christian college, which is renowned for its um, goofy rules. And I was working in the kitchen, and they brought a tour full of people, full of new prospective students through the kitchen. And I just leaned on my broom or mop or whatever. I was like, John, what do you think of working at this school? I love it. It's rewarding, fulfilling, and it pays for my education. I got written up again. But I've always hated that kind of thing. So I don't want to put anyone else through that. That's, again, disrespectful. If these are hurting people, which is what I'm writing for, I don't understand people who don't write for a purpose. They just want to write good stories. I don't connect with them, but I don't attack them either because I just don't understand you. I'm sure you have some purpose somewhere. But the if you're going to respect the people that you're writing for, you don't make it easy for them. Like, I train people to fight. Like, I'm a hand-to-hand instructor. And you don't help like women. You don't help women by making fights easy. They're very unlikely to be attacked by other women, just statistically. Okay? Probably going to be attacked by a man. So you're going to learn against a man. And he's going to be stronger than you. He's going to be a little more aggressive than you, depending on the dude. You know, you need to learn to deal with the actual threat so that your training actually keeps you alive. Because I want you to fail in the classroom so that you're fine when you're on the pavement. And that's the same way that I treat the didactic nature of what I'm doing. I want to respect the people that I'm speaking to. You ever listen to a preacher who chewed out Peter in their sermon?
I
And
don't
I'm
think I
like,
have.
do you not think you're going to meet this guy? Like, if you actually thought you were going to go to heaven and meet him, this dude cut a dude's ear off. Like, what are you doing? Shut up, stupid. But it's that kind of idea. I think real people are reading this, and because real people are reading it with real problems and real pain that could influence eternal destination, or whether they kill themselves, or whether they're going to search for truth or push truth away in search of some trendy whatever. There's too much at stake to make it easy just by sock puppeting a a scriptural argument. The scripture was written in response to real life events. That's why it's not all written at the same time. Like, it wasn't one guy who wrote it all at the same time. It was written in response to events that occurred so that there was a context in which to understand what this applies to. So, with that in mind, basically, I'm writing the Bible. So if I die,
Don't, please.
yeah, well, I'm not allowed to now because the end of Afterlight was fairly traumatic. So I'm thinking of you guys. I will try to stay alive to finish the series so that
Try and stay
there's
alive
closure.
to write books 3 and 4, further traumatize you, and
Yes,
then
yeah. No,
maybe
I'll
provide.
take that hit. Yeah. You guys are crying about the little stuff that's happening. It's like you guys have no idea what I'm going through. No, yeah, I freaking die. They call in Brandon Sanderson to write it. That'll work.
I usually ask the last thing I usually ask is, what do you hope your readers take away from your work? I feel like you've touched on this a lot already in the conversation, but is there
Mhm.
anything that you would like to make sure that you mention?
So I know I write fantasy, but um, I didn't start that way. Like I actually leaned more towards sci-fi. Um, I got along better with it. I understand technology more. Um, but the Lord wanted me to write this in a fantasy context, and it works better that way. Um, so I know I write fantasy, but it's my goal for Christians and non-Christians alike to treat life like it's real. Like this is a real thing we're doing. There is real pain. There is real enemies. There are real enemies. Um, and the point of me writing this fantasy stuff is so that people can see the real stuff. You know, I still haven't developed the magic system. I don't care. I keep hearing people talk about it, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm not writing this so neckbeards on Reddit can argue about, what casts what encounters. I don't care. That's not the point of this. Um, I want people to see real life. I want people to see pain and darkness and suffering, but also see light and hope and healing. To see the forces that are on our behalf and that are also working against us. And not just, demonic forces, which people make way too much out of, but just darkness, the nature of living in a universe beset by entropy. And so really, that's really what I want people to come away from the books doing is like, this crap is real. I need to get my crap together because, this is like The Three Amigos, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like real bullets. Like this is real. You get that moment, and that's when they grow up and fix themselves and become the heroes that they're supposed to be, which is what I want for everyone. They grow up, fix themselves, and become the heroes they're supposed to be. But I think there's a lot of, particularly in Christian circles, there's a lot of safety-oriented teaching. Keep our kids away from bad stuff. Hide them, shelter them. Pull their teeth. Don't let them fight. Make them share. Make them be nice. And nowhere in the Bible does it ever say to be nice. It says to be kind. Nice is pointless. Nice makes you feel good about yourself. But the Bible says more than it says be kind. It says to be strong and to be not afraid. And so there is a philosophy wound throughout Scripture of strength, of resistance, of defiance even. And we need to embrace that culture, embrace that heritage, and move forward with it. And then for the people who are lost in darkness still, for those who are trying to figure out the answers. I want to give them the space to figure out the answers, but realize, hey man, this is real and this is something you need to figure out. You know, the more you don't have an answer and the more you go down this path, the more damage you do to yourself, to others, you know, to your family. You need to align yourselves with the truths of the universe so that you can be moving down the productive, healthy path. And if you're resisting it because you think it's a religion, fine, take the religion out of it and just do the right thing and you'll get there. This is one of my favorite stories. I'm in boot camp and my kill hat, which his only job is to make you feel pain. He sees you mess up and he puts pain inside your body. We're on the crucible, and of course I get assigned to the kill hat. And we're doing one of our philosophy discussions, and I'm just staying quiet because this is not deep stuff we're talking about here. It's like, hey, what do you think honor is? And the kid gives a recitation from the book, you know, of the dictionary definition of honor. And I'm just like putting my head down, you know, I'm not saying anything. He looks at me and he's like, what do you think of honor? I was like, well, honor doesn't go far enough because honor is subjective. If an ISIS terrorist blows up a school bus full of kids, his guys honor him. That doesn't mean honor is good. So honor doesn't go far enough. There's right and wrong to be considered, and what people say about it doesn't matter. And he's like, whoa, we can't talk about God here. And I was like, I didn't say God, you did, because it made sense. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking, because basically I just like to talk to people about the books that I like. So I'm thrilled when I have the opportunity to pick an author's brain, and I really appreciate it. I don't know if you realize, but I talk about your book a lot on my channel in general.
Well, yay. I just sent out Kickstarter editions to the backers.
Nice.
So I'm waiting for that hammer to fall. You know, you have no idea if it's going to land with people or not. So I'm just waiting to hear back. I haven't gotten any angry DMs yet, so that's good. Really, I think over the weekend is when people will have time to start reading. So that's when I'm anticipating.
I don't think there's anything to worry about, but I understand that me saying that means nothing.
Well, I mean, I'm not anxious or anything. I did what I was supposed to do.
There you go.
I just want to see if it lands. You know,
Sure.
You know, sometimes you write something that's meant for one person, and everyone else is just kind of confused by it. But
and I could be that one person. Is that what you're saying?
No. You mostly got it. If it's not clear, that's my fault. I'm the communicator. But I've gotten emails from Marines already. One guy said that because of In Darkness Cast, he didn't kill himself. And now he's attending a church.
That's awesome.
In an area, and really turning himself around. The despair is going away. Another guy who says he came back to God because he read the book and it raised the questions, and it started him on his path back. I remember when I was first writing In Darkness Cast and I had a Marine buddy reading it. He went home, read what I had written, came back, and he's like, I need to know more about the Bible. I'm like, yes, you do. Okay. So when I talk about it landing, it needs to accomplish what it was intended to do. I hope people enjoy the story. I hope they enjoy the action scenes and the humor and the character and the world building and the non-existent magical system. Um, but that's not why I was told to write it. Those are vehicles. Um, I'm just trying to see that it does the work that it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Would you like to show your stuff? Talk about where people can find you?
Yeah, I would love to point you to my website, but Bluehost has decided to be
Oh, no.
several bad words. And so my website has been down since like November. So right now you can find me on Amazon. Just look up Jonathan Shuerger. You can see my name here. Type in Shades of Black and then click on the Jonathan Shuerger thing. Follow me on Amazon, and then when I have the opportunity to have my webpage back up, I'll have a newsletter sign up, and people can see where I'm at on the various projects that I'm working on, when the next one's coming out, when the next Kickstarter is coming out. Kickstarters are big deals. I treat them like events and celebrations. There's all kinds of cool swag. You haven't gotten your box yet. Your box is in the mail. I
Yes,
think
I'm looking forward
Juneteenth
to it.
messed up the mailing schedule, but I sent you a box of a Kickstarter edition of the book.
Thank you.
So you get some of the novellas, and the box that he comes in, which is important because chicks love boxes.
Boxes.
Yeah, they dig boxes. Guys, put it in a box. I'm just saying. So yeah, really, that's the best place to find me right now. Like I said, I wish my website was up right now because I would direct you to that. When it's up, it's jonathanshuerger.com. But for now, Amazon's probably the best place to go.
All right. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to Jonathan's fans who came and who participated in the chat. I really appreciate you guys. And I'm sure he does as well. If you are interested in my stuff, I run a review site for indie sci-fi and fantasy called Periapsis Press. It's just periapsispress.com. And then I do interviews here, and I eventually will probably do video reviews, but I haven't really dabbled that much. I mostly do live streams because that's when I have time. And like shooting a video and then editing the video, and it just sounds like just a giant time sink. So I haven't really done that.
But she could do so many angry Star Wars rants, which the world needs more of.
Right, yeah. But yeah, all my stuff is looking at and promoting indie authors. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say right now. Hi to Doug Wise, who was lurking apparently. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know it's late in some places. Oh, and I'm supposed to say things like comment, subscribe,
ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Yes.
Yes.
If you ring the bell, guaranteed within a week you'll turn it off. I always do. Like whenever I ring the bell on somebody's
I like what they said in Borderlands 3. Like, subscribe, and obey.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.